But stop. Think about it for 1 second. Jesus said, would that you were either cold or hot. If cold means far from God, is Jesus saying he would rather you be far from him? Is Jesus saying, I wish you were spiritually dead? That does not sound like Jesus. So something is wrong with our reading. Jesus is not talking about how much faith they have. He is not saying you are 50% committed. Hot and cold are not good and bad. Hot and cold are both good. That verse was never a coffee cup verse. It is a verse for people in exile, and it means far more that way. Background does not shrink the promise. Background shows how big the promise really is. God ready baye. We read it right. Episode 2. Who, what, when, knowing the background. Welcome back to God ready baye. In this episode, the topic of this episode is We Read It Right. I am Surleigh, your host today. Before we go forward, let's go back just for a minute. Last week, we learned 2 words. Exegesis, meaning pulling the meaning out of the text. Eisegesis, meaning pushing my own idea into the text. And we said one sentence together. Say it with me now. Pull out, don't push in. We also told a story. Do you remember the story of the passerby? The man who walked past a classroom heard 2 people talking about money, and he decided they were in financial trouble. He was wrong. We said he made 3 mistakes. He heard only a piece. He filled in the blanks himself. This is the one thing we care about today. He ignored the setting. He forgot he was standing outside of a classroom. The room itself would have told him everything he needed to know. He just never looked around or looked at the room or the surrounding. Today, we look at the room. Today, step 1 of our 6 steps. And step 1 is this. Before it was written to us, it was written to them. Write that down. That is the whole episode in this one sentence. Before it was written to us, it was written to them. Let me repeat. Before it was written to us, it was written to them. Every letter has an address. Let me start with something very simple. Imagine you find a letter on the ground, an old letter. You picked it up and read it. The letter says, do not worry. The money will come. Just hold on a little longer. Now, what does that letter mean? You cannot answer. You do not know who wrote it, whether it's a father, a bank, a friend, or even a stranger. Who received it? A son in college? A widow? A business partner? When was it written? Last week? 50 years ago? Until you know those things, you are only guessing. You are the passerby again. Now, here is what I want you to see. The Bible is full of letters, and every one of them has an address. Romans was written to somebody. Corinthians was written to somebody. So as Philippians, Galatians, Peter's letters, John's letters, every one has a real name, a real city, a real group of people on the other end. And it is not only the letters. The prophets preached to somebody. The gospel was written for somebody. The Psalms came out of somebody's real life. Bible was not dropped from heaven with your name on the envelope. It was written in real places to real people who had problems just like us. And here is the thing that surprises people. That does not make it less relevant to you. It makes it more because you are not guessing. Now you know what God was actually saying to actual people in actual crisis. And that is a solid place to stand. There is a phrase scholars use for this, and I want you to hear it because it is a good one. Here it is. It was not written to me, but it was written for me. Say it with me. Not written to me, written for me. That is not a downgrade. That is the difference between standing on sand and standing on rock. The 3 questions. So how do we find the address? 3 questions. Only 3. Question 1. Who wrote it? Paul, Peter, Moses, Jeremiah? And what do we know about that individual or that person at that moment? Was he free? Was he in prison? Was he old? Was he angry? Was he saying goodbye? Question number two, who received it? Church? A young pastor? A whole nation? Were they rich or poor? Were they being persecuted? Were they comfortable? Were they faithful? Were they drifting? Question three, what was going on? What was the situation? What was the problem? Why did this letter need to be written at all? Nobody writes a letter for no reason. Something happened. Find out what happened. Who wrote it? Who received it? What was going on? Three questions. You can remember three, right? Now let me show you what happens when you actually ask them. The worked example. Let's look at Laodicea. Open with me to Revelation chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. Jesus is speaking to a church, and he says, I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. With that you either cold or hot. So, because you are lukewarm, neither cold nor hot, I will spit you out of my mouth. Now, how is this verse usually preached? I have heard it many times. Maybe you have too. It usually goes like, hot means on fire. Hot means on fire for God. Cold means far from God. And lukewarm means in the middle, halfway committed. God says, be all in or be all out. Just don't be in the middle. That sounds good, doesn't it? It preaches well. But stop. Think about it for 1 second. Jesus said, would that you were either cold or hot. If cold means far from God, is Jesus saying he would rather you be far from him? Is Jesus saying, I wish you were spiritually dead? That doesn't sound like Jesus. So something is wrong with our reading. Let's ask the three questions. Who wrote it? John, recording the words of the risen Christ, and near the end of the first century. Who received it? A church in a city called Laodicea in what is now Western Turkey. What was going on? Now, we go looking, and this is where it gets good. Let me tell you about three things about the city of Laodicea. Real things. Things archaeologists have dug up out of the ground. Number one, Laodicea was rich, very rich. In the year 60 AD, a massive earthquake destroyed the city. Rome offered to pay for the rebuilding, the way a government sends disaster relief. Laodicea said, no, we don't need it. We'll pay for it ourselves. The Roman historian Tacitus recorded this. That is how wealthy the city was. It was a banking center. Number two, Laodicea made two famous products. It produced a rare, glossy black wool, expensive clothing known across the region. And it had a well-known medical school that produced an eye salve or a medicine for the eyes. Number three, this is the key. Laodicea had a water problem. The city had no good water source of its own, so the water was piped in from far away through an aqueduct, a long stone channel. Now, next door, about 6 miles north, was a city called Hierapolis. Hierapolis had famous hot springs, hot mineral water. People traveled there just to sit in it because the heat was healing. Hot water was good for you. And to the east was Colossae. Yes, the same Colossae Paul wrote a letter to. Colossae had cold, fresh mountain water. Clean, cold drinking water. Cold was good for you too. Hot water heals, cold water refreshes. But Laodicea, by the time the water traveled all those miles through the hot stone pipe, it arrived lukewarm, warm, flat, and full of minerals from the pipe. It was not good for healing. It was not good for drinking. If you took a mouthful, you would spit it out. Now, go back and read the verse. Because you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. Church, do you see it? Jesus is not talking about how much faith they have. He is not saying you are 50% committed. Jesus is using their own city water as a picture. Every single person in that room had spit out that water. They knew exactly what he meant. He is saying you are useless. You are not healing anyone like hot spring. You are not refreshing anyone like the cold mountain stream. You are like your own water. You arrive and nobody wants you. Hot and cold are not good and bad. Hot and cold are both good. That is why he says he wishes they were one or the other. Lukewarm is not in the middle. Lukewarm is no good to anybody. And now, watch what happens in the very next verse, verse 17 and 18. Jesus says, "For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, and white garments so that you may clothe yourself, and salve to anoint your eyes so that you may see. Gold, the banking city, you think you're rich, you're poor. White garments, the famous black wool. You think you're well dressed, you're naked. Exiles, the famous medicine. You think you can see, you are blind." Jesus goes down the list of everything that city was proud of, and he takes it apart one by one. That is not a coincidence. That is a savior who knows exactly where they live. Now, let me ask you honestly, could you get any of that just by staring harder at the English word lukewarm? No. You could stare at it for a year. You had to go find a city. A second, shorter example. Let me give you one more. Faster this time. You remember Jeremiah 29:11? You know this verse. It is on coffee cups. It is on graduation cards. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare, not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." Wonderful verse. We talked about it during July 4th event here in San Diego. Now, 3 questions. Who wrote it? Jeremiah the prophet. Who received it? Here is the answer. And it is right there in verse 1. He is writing a letter to the people of Judah who had been taken away as prisoners to Babylon. Their city was destroyed. Their temple was gone. They were living in a foreign country, far from home. What was going on? There were other prophets telling the people, "Don't worry, this will be over in 2 years. You will be home soon." And Jeremiah writes to say, "No, that is a lie." Read verse 10. God says it will be 70 years. 70 years. Most of the people reading that letter would die in Babylon. They would never see home again. And then God says, "I know the plans I have for you." Now think about what that verse actually means. It does not mean everything will work out quickly. It means you are going to be there. It means you are going to be here a long time, longer than you want. Most of you will not live to see it. And I am still God. My plan is still good. And my plan is still coming. Do you know what that does to the verse? It makes it stronger, much stronger. Because now it's not a promise for easy days. It is a promise God spoke to the people in exile, people far from their island, far from their family, who did not know if they would ever go home. Some of you know exactly how that feels. That verse was never a coffee cup verse. It is a verse for people in exile, and it means far more that way. Background does not shrink the promise. Background shows how big the promise really is. Where do I find this? Now, some of you are thinking, "Surleigh, that is fine for you. You went to school. How am I supposed to know about aqueducts in Turkey?" That's a fair question. Here is the honest answer. Most of what I told you today, I did not know. I looked it up. That is not cheating. That is work. And the tools are not hard to get. 1, read the first few verses of the book. This is free. And you already have it. Most letters tell you who wrote it and who got it in the first sentence. Jeremiah 29 tells you in verse 1. People skip this because it looks boring. Do not skip it. 2, read the book introduction in your study Bible. If you own a study Bible, before every book, there is a page or 2 that answers all 3 of our questions. Most people flip right past it. That page 1 is step 1 already done for you. 3, use a Bible dictionary or a commentary. A Bible dictionary lets you look up Laodicea the same way you look up a word in a regular dictionary. That is exactly how you find the water and the wool and the exiles. And a note for those who have Logos software or who are thinking about it. This is what it is genuinely good for. You click the word Laodicea and the background comes to you. I've used Logos for over 15 years. For number 4, a warning. Not everyone on the internet is true. If you search online and one website tells you something exciting, check it against the second source. Good teachers show you where they got it. If someone will not tell you where they got it, be careful. I told you Tychicus recorded the earthquake. That is checkable. You can go look it up. Always be able to show your work. In grad school, they always require citations and peer-reviewed citation. Closing and practice. Let me bring it home. Last week, we learned to stop pushing our ideas into the text. This week, we learned the first thing to do instead. Go find the address. Here is your sentence for the week. Before it was written to us, it was written to them. And here is the second one, the one I want you to hold on to. It was not written to me, but it was written for me. That is not a smaller Bible. That is not a bigger one. Because a God who spoke into a real crisis in a real city to real frightened people, that is a God who can speak into ours. Now, your practice for this week, 3 small steps. 1, pick any letter in the New Testament. Anyone. Read only the first 3 verses, write down who wrote it and who received it. 2, if you have a study Bible, read the introduction page for that book, just that one page. 3, ask the third question. What was going on? And write down 1 sentence. 1 sentence is enough. That is it. That is step 1, and I know you can do it. Next episode, or next week, episode 3, what comes before and after? Because this week we walked around the outside of the house. Next week we go inside. Put your questions in the comments. I read them. God bless you and your family. This is Surleigh with Pacifica United Ministry. God read it by it, meaning we read it right. Thank you and take blessings.